Anarcho-Primitivism presents a fundamental critique of civilization itself, contending that the very structures we consider hallmarks of progress, technology, industrialization, and centralized governance, are in fact the sources of profound alienation, systemic domination, and ecological devastation. This perspective is not merely an opposition to authoritarian rule, but an assertion that civilization, by its very nature, is a mechanism of enslavement, severing humanity from its primordial state of harmony with the natural world. At the heart of anarcho-primitivist thought lies the belief that the transition from a hunter-gatherer existence to an agrarian and industrial society constitutes the original rupture in human freedom. Prehistoric societies, largely egalitarian and decentralized, lived in direct reciprocity with nature, free from the rigid hierarchies that characterize modern existence. The advent of agriculture, however, introduced private property, specialization, and the accumulation of surplus, elements that engendered power asymmetries, institutionalized violence, and the gradual erosion of autonomy. Industrialization, far from being a sign of human advancement, is seen as the culmination of this historical trajectory, one that has rendered individuals increasingly dependent upon technological systems that dictate the rhythms of their existence. Prominent thinkers have offered varied critiques of technological civilization that resonate with anarcho-primitivist thought. John Zerzan interrogates the very foundations of symbolic culture, language, art, and mathematics, arguing that these constructs mediate and distance human beings from the immediacy of lived experience. In his view, civilization is a process of abstraction that alienates individuals from their own instincts, reducing them to mere functionaries of an artificial order. Ted Kaczynski, in Industrial Society and Its Future, asserts that the modern technological apparatus is inherently self-perpetuating, stripping individuals of personal agency while fostering a psychological dependency that ensures compliance with the very systems that oppress them. Jacques Ellul explores the notion of technological determinism, positing that once a technology emerges, its adoption and integration into society become inexorable, shaping human behaviors and institutions in ways beyond conscious control. Friedrich Nietzsche, though not a primitivist, provides a philosophical foundation for critiquing modernity, particularly in his concept of ressentiment, the notion that the structures of civilization suppress the natural instincts of strength, vitality, and self-overcoming. For anarcho-primitivists, the solution is not reform, but a complete abandonment of technological society. This radical proposition entails a return to an existence untethered from industrial dependency, a world in which human beings engage with their environment directly, unmediated by machines, hierarchies, or artificial constructs. Only in such a state, they argue, can the authentic will to freedom be realized, and the false idols of progress be dismantled. The anarcho-primitivist rejection of modern civilization finds echoes in the writings of key philosophers who have long questioned the very foundations of progress, morality, and human nature. From Rousseau's idyllic vision of pre-civilized humanity to Nietzsche's condemnation of modernity's weakening effects, the philosophical roots of this critique stretch deep into the history of thought. Jean-Jacques Rousseau's vision of humanity in its natural state stands in stark contrast to the modern world. In his view, primitive man was neither brutal nor violent, but rather lived in a state of peaceful self-sufficiency, unburdened by the constraints of property, law, and social hierarchy. The emergence of civilization, he argued, was not a mark of progress, but a fall from grace, an event that shackled mankind with inequality, competition, and artificial desires. Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. For Rousseau, the development of agriculture, cities, and political institutions did not elevate humanity but enslaved it. He saw private property as the root of social injustice and believed that early societies were marked by a form of natural harmony that was systematically destroyed by civilization. While his ideas did not call for a literal return to a pre-agricultural state, they deeply influenced later critiques of industrial society, including anarcho-primitivism's vision of rejecting modernity to reclaim a more authentic existence. While Rousseau mourned the loss of natural innocence, Friedrich Nietzsche saw civilization as a force of domestication that crushed the human spirit. He argued that moral systems, particularly those emerging from organized religion and societal norms, functioned as tools of oppression, designed to suppress the instinctual, self-determined power of individuals. Nietzsche's concept of slave morality is particularly relevant to anarcho-primitivist thought. In his view, civilization fosters weakness by promoting values like obedience, humility, and conformity, suppressing the raw, untamed instincts of humanity. He saw modernity as a mechanism that sapped individuals of their vitality, replacing strength and self-overcoming with docility and subjugation. The anarcho-primitivist rejection of technology and hierarchical society can be seen as an extension of Nietzsche's call for a return to a more primal, unrestrained existence, one in which individuals are no longer shackled by artificial constructs, but instead live according to their own will and strength. Were hunter-gatherers actually happier? Philosophical critiques of civilization gain further weight when examined through the lens of anthropology and evolutionary psychology. Did the transition to agriculture and industrialization truly improve human life? Or did it lead to greater suffering? Anthropologist Robin Dunbar proposed that human social structures evolved for small, close-knit communities of roughly 150 people. In such environments, people formed deep social bonds, shared resources communally, and lived in a way that was more aligned with their psychological and biological needs. Modern research supports the idea that hunter-gatherer societies may have been more content than their modern counterparts. They worked significantly fewer hours, typically only 4 to 6 hours a day, leaving ample time for leisure, storytelling, and social interaction. They had a lower prevalence of mental illness, free from the chronic anxiety and depression that plague industrialized societies. Their deep connection to nature fostered a spiritual and psychological balance that is largely absent in modern urban life. Could it be that civilization, rather than liberating humanity, has trapped it in an existence of stress, overwork, and disconnection? The agricultural revolution, a trap. Historian Yuval Noah Harari, in *Sapiens*, describes the agricultural revolution not as a breakthrough for human progress, but as the greatest mistake in history. He argues that the shift to farming led to overpopulation, which in turn fueled warfare, competition, and rigid social hierarchies. A decline in nutritional quality. Early farmers worked harder and ate a more monotonous diet compared to the diverse foods consumed by hunter-gatherers. The rise of cities, which brought disease, pollution, and mechanisms of social control. From this perspective, agriculture was not a choice made freely, but a trap, one that locked human beings into a cycle of labor, scarcity, and dependence on increasingly complex systems of authority. Unlike hunter-gatherers, who lived with mobility and variety, agrarian societies became bound to the land, forced into repetitive work schedules dictated by the needs of crops and livestock. For anarcho-primitivists, this is the very essence of the problem. Civilization created the illusion of progress while systematically stripping individuals of their autonomy. What if the way forward is actually a return to the past? A rejection of technology and industrialization in favor of a way of life that is more in tune with our evolutionary nature. As modern civilization hurtles forward, technology, once heralded as humanity's great liberator, increasingly reveals itself as a force of subjugation. The anarcho-primitivist perspective holds that technology is not merely a tool wielded by society, but an autonomous entity, one that shapes human behavior, restructures social order, and ultimately enslaves its creators. French philosopher Jacques Ellul, in The Technological Society, presents a stark warning. Technology is a runaway force, beyond the control of human will. Once a technological innovation is introduced, it does not remain a neutral option. It becomes a necessity, shaping institutions, behaviors, and values in ways that are irreversible. Consider the internet. Initially envisioned as a space of free information exchange, it has instead become a tool of mass surveillance, an engine of algorithmic manipulation, and a cause of digital addiction. Rather than empowering individuals, it has enabled unprecedented corporate and state control. Social media, once seen as a means of global connection, has paradoxically deepened social fragmentation. While it offers the illusion of interconnectedness, it fosters isolation, anxiety, and dependency, turning human interaction into a commodified experience driven by algorithms rather than genuine relationships. Ellul's critique aligns seamlessly with anarcho-primitivism. Technology, far from being a neutral force, dictates the very structure of society. By embedding itself into every aspect of life, it strips individuals of agency, reducing them to passive participants in a system they neither designed nor control. Few figures are as controversial as Ted Kaczynski, yet his manifesto, Industrial Society and Its Future, presents a chillingly prescient critique of technological civilization. Kaczynski saw industrialization not as a symbol of human progress, but as the primary force behind alienation, environmental destruction, and authoritarian control. Industrial society, he argued, replaces autonomy with servitude, forcing individuals into rigid, monotonous roles dictated by economic efficiency rather than personal fulfillment. Mass technology fosters totalitarian control, where governments and corporations dictate the boundaries of human behavior, from surveillance capitalism to predictive policing. True freedom, in Kaczynski's view, is impossible within civilization. Only by rejecting industrial society entirely, by dismantling its institutions and returning to a primitive way of life, can humanity reclaim its autonomy. While his methods were widely condemned, his critiques of technological dependence resonate deeply within anarcho-primitivist philosophy. The modern individual, tethered to systems beyond their control, is little more than a cog in the great machinery of industrial civilization. Can we really abandon civilization? If technological civilization is the root of human suffering, then the logical conclusion of anarcho-primitivism would be its total rejection. But is such a return to primitive life even possible? Critics argue that abandoning civilization is not merely difficult, it is catastrophic. Billions would die. The global population is sustained by industrial agriculture, medical advancements, and technological infrastructure. A return to hunter-gatherer existence would mean mass starvation, as Earth's current population far exceeds its pre-industrial carrying capacity. The loss of medical progress, modern medicine, from vaccines to antibiotics, has eradicated countless diseases and extended human lifespans. Abandoning civilization would mean a return to high infant mortality rates, rampant infections, and a life expectancy closer to 30 to 40 years. Not all of civilization is inherently oppressive. While anarcho-primitivists critique industrialization, some aspects of modernity, such as human rights, democratic governance, and scientific knowledge, have undeniably improved quality of life. Is it rational to discard these advancements entirely? Advocating for total rejection, some thinkers propose a neo-primitivist approach, a synthesis between primitivist ideals and selective use of modern advancements, reducing dependence on industrial technology. Instead of mass technological reliance, societies could embrace low-tech, decentralized, and sustainable solutions. Living in small, self-sufficient communities, echoing Dunbar's research, human well-being thrives in closely bonded, cooperative groups rather than large, alienating urban centers. A return to deep ecology, rejecting the dominance of technology, does not mean rejecting all knowledge. A sustainable future might involve embracing ecological wisdom while resisting the relentless march of industrial expansion. Ultimately, the anarcho-primitivist critique forces a fundamental question. Is technological civilization an inevitable trajectory, or is it a prison of our own making? And if it is a prison, do we dare escape? At its core, anarcho-primitivism presents a haunting paradox. The very advancements that have propelled humanity forward may also be the chains that bind us. Is technology an inescapable trap, or have we simply failed to wield it wisely? The question is not merely whether we can abandon civilization, but whether we should. Would a return to primitive life restore the lost harmony between humans and nature, or would it condemn billions to suffering? Can we reject industrial domination without discarding the knowledge that has extended life and deepened understanding? Perhaps the path forward is not absolute rejection, but radical reformation, a reconciliation between technological innovation and ecological wisdom. A civilization that thrives with nature rather than against it. A world where progress is measured not by efficiency or profit, but by autonomy, balance, and human fulfillment. What do you think? Is civilization inherently oppressive, or can we find a sustainable way to exist within it? Should humanity abandon technology altogether, or is there a middle ground?